Hello fellow artists of blue and welcome to my channel, and also welcome to another episode of Heavy Contrast, a series of videos where I show you how to paint box art level minis using just contrast type paints and highlights. And as always, this series is sponsored by Corvus Belli to showcase the incredible infinity range of models. If you've ever been curious about infinity, this is the perfect time to check it out. I will leave a link in the description to Corvus Belli's webpage where you can see all the incredible models they make and where you can download the rules for the game. And also in this video I've just recently been given the AK Quick Gem box set, and I wanted to see what kind of results you can make just using the paints in that box set. Also to see how the Quick Gem paints behave in a more demanding scenario. So, and now, let's get cracking. As you can see, we are starting from a base coat of a zenithal, starting from mechanical standard grey from underneath, as you can see, and pure white from the top. I use my airbrush to do this, but you can just use rattle cans. I've done that in the past, and the results are amazing. And for our first step, I'm going to start with the undersuit, as that way, if I mess up, I can just clean up later all of the layers that are on the top. And for that, I'm going to use Necromancer Purple. And I'm thinning my Necromancer Purple with a ratio of 3 parts Necromancer Purple and 1 part medium. And it's just a matter of picking up all of this weird undersuit that he has. I'm going to be as careful as possible in going very slowly, just so I don't pick up any area that is not purple. And with the purple now done, I'm going to tackle now the, well, weird colored white armor. Has quite a pinkish purplish tone. That's why I'm very excited to use light gray shadow to paint it. I'm going to try and avoid painting the areas that are a steel color, but I don't really care that much, if I'm honest. I think it's way more important to cover all of the other details with this. The key here is moving section by section, going slowly, and absorbing any excess. As I'm going to put this over everything, this will help add definition and shading to all of the parts. And it will make it easier to see what parts are where. Because with the incredibly high detail of these models, it can be a little bit tricky sometimes. And a general wash like this is going to help massively. I can go back to some areas and clean up the top sections to create a more intense highlight. And with the white armor done and drying, I'm going to take my time to base coat the face, because this model has a face. This is the first time I've painted a face for an Infinity model, because they are usually just mech suits or helmets, and I'm very excited, and for that I'm going to use a 1-to-1 mix of human flesh and medium. If you mess it up, you can just wipe it off with a clean brush if you are quick. And for the hair, I'm going to use British Uniform. With the flesh and hair now painted, I'm going to move on to all of the pink details. There are a lot of pink accents, so this is going to take quite a while, but it's going to look amazing in the end. And for that, I'm just going to use a Space Magenta. This time, I do want to avoid any of the steel details. Should be quite easy to do, since we have everything outlined now. The subtle outline of the light gray shadow makes for a super quick and easy application of this pink. I finished painting all of the pink details, and I had some issues with the Quick Gem, the high intensity, the Space Magentas, and also with the Necromancer Purple over flat surfaces. I'm really struggling to get a smooth result. I didn't have any issues with the low intensity, but the high intensity are difficult to manage. Now I'm going to paint all of the steel details, and for that I'm going to use a mix of 1 part blue-black and 2 parts medium. Once you go into low intensities or you add medium to a paint, it behaves really well, but the high intensity paints over large flat surfaces, that is a pain. Remember to go around and absorb any excess so we don't get ugly pools of paint, just like that. With the steel done, I'm going to paint the black gun, and for that I'm going to start with soft black. I'm going to apply soft black all over, then I will do a dry brush and apply soft black again to highlight all of the edges. It's a super cool way of painting this kind of details very quickly and efficiently, so we have time to paint the good bits good. You don't really want to lose too much time painting a gun full of tiny details when you can paint the armor and all of the cool stuff. So I'm just going to cover this, wait for it to dry, and I will be back with you for the second layer. While the gun dries, I can use this time to paint all of the blue details, and for this I'm going to use a mix of 3 parts ultramarine blue and 1 part medium. This will be a real test for the consistency over large flat surfaces, because this is massive. The blue is now dry, and as you can see, the self-leveling properties are not the best. It's not a horrible result. I'm sure I can make it look amazing with the highlights, but over large flat panels, they really don't like to behave as I expect them to. Doesn't mean that they are bad, it's just probably just getting used to them. I'm used to applying a lot and then absorbing the excess, and that just doesn't seem to work. I'm going to paint now all of the gold details, and for this I'm going to use orange brown. We just have one more layer of quick joint to do, and we will be done, and we can move to the highlights and to the refining details. But first we have to do a dry brush on the gun. For that I'm just going to use white. As you can see, I'm just trying to pick up the raised details, just like that. We want a very light dry brush because we want this gun to be very dark. Just like that. That is more than enough. And for the last step, I'm just going to take soft black again and apply it all over as we did. This will reinforce the color, and hopefully the edge highlight will stand out. And this will be a great place to stop if you just want a tabletop standard. But of course I'm going to show you how you can bring this to the next level. The first step to bring this miniature to the next level is going to be adding a little bit extra shading on the white details. I'm happy with the general shading of the shapes, but some of the recess shades are not as deep as I would want them. So I'm going to take gray shadow and apply it on the recesses, just like that, just to increase the definition of the different panels and different shapes. We can also turn this into a glaze to add some extra shading on the bottom panel of the certain panels to increase the volumetric effect. On top of doing that with the white, I also want to do it with the pink, because it's way darker in the artwork and has like a coldish shadow, so I'm going to use Necromancer Purple to add some definition if I need to, for example here, but also to add some shading and a colder tone to the shadows. I'm doing this again using just some glazes, just like that. And finally, if I really want to, I can take some blue-black and add some more touches of definition around some details. using this as a general recess shade, just making sure all of our details are nicely outlined and defined. I'm just going through the model, picking up places where I feel like it needs more definition, and just picking them up. Well, I'm really sorry there was a light outage and all of the recordings of how to paint the face are lost. Sorry. I can explain you how I did it. What I did was I started with a mix. As you can see it here, let me rig my palette. I started with a mix of human flesh and basic skin tone. That was my initial skin highlight color. Then I keep on adding iced yellow until pure iced yellow. And finally I did a glaze using human flesh, very thin glaze using human flesh all over the face to incorporate everything. And now what I like to do is start adding tones, and for that I'm going to use reddish flesh, which I'm going to thin down into a glaze and, you know, add these reddish colors to the lips, to the nose, ears, here underneath the cheekbones, stuff like that, just to make it look a little bit more human. Just like that, a little touch is more than enough. And we can go back with our color, in this case is a 50-50 mix of human flesh and iced yellow, to highlight this. And now I'm going to paint the hair. And for that, what I think I'm going to do, because I don't really like the tone of the hair, is to just highlight it using iced yellow, which I'm going to thin down into a very thin consistency, so it flows nicely. And I'm just going to highlight the hair towards the front of the face. And after this, I'm just going to apply a layer of a quick gen on top to unify everything. I know this looks incredibly jarring right now, but that's the idea. And I'm going to use orange brown over that. This will make his hair look more vibrant, because the orange red has a really intense color. But over the areas where the ice yellow is, it's going to make him look pretty cool, just like that. And that's the hair done, by the way. I'm not going to add any more highlights, but because he has eyebrows sculpted, I'm going to put this orange brown on the eyebrows as well, just to make him look a little bit better. With the face and the hair now finished, it's time to paint the white armor. Funny enough, this is not the main center of attention, that will be probably the pink details, but it's still a very important part of the model. And the first highlight I'm going to do is a 1-to-1 mix of pastel violet and white. This will be mainly a thick edge highlight on the lighter details and a thin edge highlight on the darker details. If we want to make a more volumetric approach, we can also use this as a volumetric highlight, just with some glazes. But you can use any approach you want to add highlights. Stippling works very well, so does feathering with these paints. But in my case, the approach to highlighting these volumes is going to be minimal. It's mainly going to be an edge highlight. Instead of painting everything, I'm just going to show you the final highlight, which is going to be pure white. And this is just going to be my extreme highlight. And I'm just going to do a thin edge highlight and a dot highlight with this. To highlight the purple undersuit, I'm going to use a 1-to-1 mix of pastel violet and necromancer purple. The highlights here are going to be very minimal, because I don't want the undersuit to take too much attention. If you get into darker areas, you can always increase the amount of necromancer purple to make for a softer highlight. I'm just going to edge highlight some of the details here. If some of the edge highlights get a bit too harsh, we can always glaze down with some of the necromancer purple, just like this, to reduce them and integrate them better. And we can finish with some highlights of pure white, just as a shine point. That is more than enough for the inner suit of the armor. For the steel details, I'm going to do my first highlight using pale blue. And basically, I'm going to do an edge highlight with this, as thin as you can make it. And we can make some volumetric highlights with some texture like this, following the shapes to create a non-metallic effect look. It's really easy to do NMM on this kind of small details, and it's very rewarding. And the final highlight for the steel details is just pure white. We are going to do the same kind of thing, but again more concentrated. Don't forget that white needs layering to achieve its full opaqueness, so we can take advantage of that to make blending. So by doing several layers and several spots, we get a super cool definition. As I said, I'm going to show you how to paint all of the details before painting everything, because this is a large model and it's going to take a while. So I'm going to show you how to paint the gold NMM. For this, I'm going to go with ice yellow, because these are very small details. We can just get away with a simple targeted highlights using ice yellow. And then a final highlight of pure white is going to seal the deal here. To paint the gun, I'm just going to use warm grey to do some quick edge highlights. Essentially just reinforcing what we did with the dry brushing and quick gen layer. And just targeting all of the edges that are looking upwards. Remember, this is just a background detail, it's not really important, it just needs to look painted. And I think that is more than enough, if I'm honest. It's now time to paint the blue details. It's very simple. The first highlight is going to be a 1-to-1 mix of star blue and snow blue. And I'm going to do this as an edge highlight. And because I'm not really happy with how the quick gen settled onto the shield, and because this is a shield so I can do whatever I want, I'm going to add some weathering. Weathering fixes everything, so I'm going to make this shield to look like it's been through some stuff. If we need to smooth some transitions, we can do a 1-to-1 mix of ultramarine blue and star blue to blend everything together. Or you could just glaze some ultramarine blue, depending on what you prefer. But I like mixing acrylics with normal acrylics with contrast type paints, because it gives you sort of an in-between color, something that is not opaque and that is not transparent, so it adds another subtle tone. The next highlight on the blue is about 6 parts snow blue and 1 part star blue. Just add a little bit of star blue into your snow blue, but 6 parts to 1 is exactly the recipe that I want. But again, you don't need to mix that much. And I'm going to reinforce this highlight with this, just focusing it on the sharpest corners or on the edges that are facing upwards. And the final highlight will be pure snow blue. And this will be more of a dot highlight. Again, we can use a glaze of ultramarine blue if we want to unify some stuff. For example, here, where I'm not really happy with how everything settled, so I can make the blue look more consistent and also help integrate some of the scratches. with that done, it's now time to paint all of the pink areas, which are like the biggest accent areas of the whole model, so they are quite important. And what I'm going to use is, for the first stage, a mix of space magenta and pastel violet. 2 parts space magenta, 1 part pastel violet. It's going to be a very transparent mix that's hopefully going to work very well. This way I can build it up, trying to create opacity and clean up all of these areas that didn't turn out to be that good. I can mix a little bit more space magenta into there just to smooth out some of these transitions, just like that. For the edge highlight and the next highlight is a 1-to-1 mix of pastel violet and space magenta. And for the volumetric, I'm just going to thin it down and stipple my way into a nice rounded highlight here. And finally, a final highlight of pure pastel violet. And again, if we want to unify things, we can do a glaze as we did for the blue details. And in this case, I found out I much prefer a mix of Necromancer Purple and Space Magenta. This is a 1-to-1. So this is the final model, Maximus, Optimate and Exadome Legend, in all of his absolute glory. This was a super fun color scheme to paint, way outside my comfort zone in terms of colors, but one that I'm really happy how it turned out. And speaking about the quick gen, I am very happy in general, but be aware that the high intensity paints can misbehave over large flat surfaces. I had no issues with the low intensity and with the medium intensity, but the high intensity gave me some troubles. So I would highly recommend you apply them using medium in 2 or 3 layers if you are painting models with really large flat panels. That being said, that doesn't mean that they are bad, just that for certain applications you might want to consider a different way of doing it. And that is all for this video. Thank you very much. Speaking of that, thank you to my amazing Patreons which make this video possible. You can see the names scrolling down the screen. If you want to join them and helping me support in making this content, I will leave a link in the description to my Patreon page. Thank you if you click that link, and I will catch you in the next one. Bye!